Today, the two Mpumalanga siblings who were allegedly kidnapped last year and trafficked to Malawi are expected to return home to South Africa. The kidnapper, who claimed to be a retired school teacher, had promised their grandmother to find good education for the 14-year-old boy and employment for the 20-year-old woman in the United Kingdom. But they were then instead taken to Malawi. Interpol then alerted the South African authorities, and a team of government officials were deployed to bring the siblings back to South Africa. It is, however, not clear how long the siblings have been held in Malawi, and we'll find that out in due course. Now, Solomon Mkhale, the spokesperson of the South African Police Service, has confirmed that the siblings have been found and that they are safe. Now, joining us now today are Major Margret Stafford from the South African Salvation Army. She's in Port Elizabeth. And Ms. Grootboom from Embrace Dignity, who's an administrator and an advocate against human trafficking. I must also point out that Ms. Grootboom is a survivor of human trafficking. And let me quickly talk to Griselda about this. Very good morning to you, Griselda. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I first want to start with getting your reaction to the return of these two young South Africans who've been trafficked to Malawi. Just your reaction to their return.
I am very happy for them, and I'm very excited, and that it happened sooner than years or later. And yeah, and I'm really hoping they're going to get the best counsel also for the trauma. So yes, I'd like to say thank you for all of those who have taken part to make sure their rescue is safe, and they were rescued sooner before anything worse could happen on their trauma.
Now you yourself, you were a victim of human trafficking. Can you, I know it's a deeply personal story, but can you share some of it for us at least, Griselda?
I was trafficked when I was 18 by a friend from Cape Town to Joburg, and when I was trafficked, it was a surprise to me because I really trusted her, and she knew my situation, where I come from, and I really wanted a change of life. And the experience of being trafficked is like being in a prison and there's no help. The 2 weeks when I was in that room and tied up with sellotape around my eyes, and men could do whatever they wanted to do every day, I could only feel and smell. And even up to this point, there's still some trauma sometimes that breaks through from there. 2 weeks coming from there, there's nothing else that I could think of just going straight to drugs, because that's all they gave me to eat, or my body was stuffed up with drugs for the 2 weeks, so men could come in every day to do whatever they want to do. And after the 2 weeks to survive, I just went straight to prostitution and drugs up to the age of 26. And trafficking it's the most sexual exploitation that any person can have, let alone a boy. So I'm really, really hoping they're gonna get all the health and need of that trauma. I still go through certain moments of 6 years as a survivor when it comes to trauma and health matters. So yes, it is really not a place, and parents should be so more obsessed with where's your children, what are they doing. I really feel that as parents, we're not really taking our part as community also. And the social development of our country needs to become more stronger on making sure prevention against human trafficking should take place, and trying to secure our young girls and boys.
Well, once you're in this world, this underbelly of society, it's obviously very difficult to get out. How did you manage to escape it?
I escaped when I was 26, and I was pregnant with a baby girl at 6 months. And my last pimp that had a brothel, she forced me for abortion on that. And immediately after that abortion, she told me to go and work. And coming out from an abortion that I was hoping was being human, and finally feeling the woman in me of having a baby was such an excitement for me, but she took that away from me. that was the day and the time I said, this is it. You know, I'd rather just give up my life right here and right now if I've lost Summer, my baby girl that I was so excited to have. And yes, that was the day when I said, I'm not going to take another client. And after that, she beats me up, and you know, everybody else that she knows also did the same thing. And I woke up in Johannesburg hospital after a month, and I was really, really surprised. Of course, it was very, very hard to be and become part of society, because you know, after so many years being in drugs alone is something, how are you going to get off it? Who's going to support you? Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to accept you? Who's going to understand you? And who can you trust? Even the word trust is for me, it's still very new on people that I meet every day. So getting out of it was hard to survive. Shelters were not much in South Africa, Joburg, wherever I went to survive. And you know, the drug hab areas was very hard. But yeah, on a spiritual level, I had to carry my grace and keep on hoping for the best. For Summer, I guess, because that was my turning point. Griselda, when I had to be forced on abortion.
Well, Griselda, you're very brave, and I want to commend you for coming out and speaking about this massive problem. That's a global problem, really. But in our studio in Port Elizabeth, from the Salvation Army here in South Africa, we have Major Margret Stafford. A very good morning to you, Major, and thank you for joining us. I just want to ask you, I'm sure you've heard some of Griselda's deeply personal story, and maybe you can add to that the scenario around human trafficking in South Africa and then on the wider African continent.
I think one of the most important things that I can tell you with Griselda's story is that it was a friend that got her into this whole thing. And we've been teaching our children for a long time, stranger danger. But with this human trafficking thing, we are realizing more and more and more. It's people that you know, it's your friends saying, listen, I've moved to Pretoria, get on a bus and come up to me, that we've got a place for you to stay, we've got work for you to do, you'll be better off coming with me. And we trust that. And you get in the bus and you go to Pretoria and you end up on the streets as a prostitute, or you're under a pimp, or you're trafficked into a different part of the world.
I want to talk about the 2 South Africans that are returning today. They're now going to be reintegrated. Can you give us an idea of this reintegration process and also how difficult it must be?
Well, the South African government have got an International Social Services Department, and the International Social Services Department should be the ones that have been doing the liaison between the 2 countries, and they would have spoken to the social workers in Malawi, and then they would have spoken again and made sure that when they get home, there's a full integration program. All of this looks brilliant on paper, but as in Griselda's point, you know, it's difficult to see the implementation often. So everything is in place that should be there, but whether or not it works, I don't know.
I want to ask you about, here in South Africa, we see government stepping up this fight, recently introduced new visa regulations. Do you think that these new regulations will assist in the fight against human trafficking, especially young children?
Again, the implementation of that. For example, this happened last year in July. The 14-year-old that we have in Malawi now would not have been able to go across the border without that unabridged birth certificate. But again, you just pay a little bit of extra money. Home Affairs official gets you one. You know, we've seen that happening all over the show. So where there's a will, there's a way. And but it just adds to the complications of getting children across borders. I think it's an important piece of legislation. I think it's a good piece of legislation. I know tourism and all of the other guys are shouting about how many people are cancelling because of it. But you know, I don't think it's expecting more from you than what other countries expect from you. And I do think it's important. I think it would have been helpful in this 14-year-old's case. This woman wouldn't have been able to get him across the border quite so easily.
Major, I thank you for joining us. That's Major Margret Stafford from the South African Salvation Army, giving us an insight of this problem that's affecting all of us. Before we carry on, I just want to go back to Cape Town, where Griselda is. Griselda, before I let you go, my dear, can you just give some advice to young people at risk today?
I would really advise the young boys and girls out there, like, always let somebody know where you're going. Especially when you meet new people, you know, the interest they put on you, be aware of it, because, you know, somebody's going to be so friendly to you up to a point where they offer you a lift, or on Facebook, people have this crazy conversations on Facebook and started growing into trust of somebody that you don't know. Anybody can put up an address, and anybody can put up an article, or anybody can say they're running a modeling agency business. Anybody can do it. It is media, social media. And also, I know that we, as young people, we are very excited and ambitious and who we want to be in our dreams and following that. But let's also find a second opinion on whatever decisions we want to make on our future and careers. And, you know, people take advantage of that. The traffickers take advantage of that. And believe you me, there's a lot of money made out of this. People get a lot of money trafficking. I mean, in our prostitute brothels, people are calling to ask, what's the youngest person you find in a strip club or something, because there's trafficking for it. So I'd really advise the girls, yes, it's exciting to be at a party, it's exciting to be with friends on the beach, but be careful. Always go in a group and make sure in the group there are friends and family that you can trust, and always let your parents know where you are. It's very, very important to keep a tail behind where you can be traced.
Griselda, thank you very much for joining us today live from Cape Town. Griselda Grootboom is a survivor and former victim of human trafficking, sharing a deeply personal story with us. It's something that's happening not just in our country, not just on the continent, but everywhere around the world.